All right, good morning. Let's get this over with. It's Friday. Let's go outside and party. All right? Raise your hand if you guys want to party later. In your own house with no one else there. All by yourselves on Google Sheets. Doing balance sheets. It's a balance sheet party. And we have participants leaving. All right. So I do have to, I was working for like hours last night trying to figure out the best way to balance your balance sheet going through an acquisition. A merger is easy. All right, so a merger is much easier. There are too many variables for me to be able to effectively teach you the right way to do an acquisition. Does that make sense? There's a lot of variables. What Tyler had said yesterday is true. If you look at there is something called additional paid capital. There's also something called goodwill, which is when you pay above market value for a company. Right, so if Under Armour is worth $10 billion and you pay $15 billion, well, that $5 billion goes into a new category called goodwill, right? Because it's an intangible asset. A tangible asset is all the assets a company has that you can touch and hold. Intangible, you guys know what intangible means? I'll let you guys unmute yourselves also. I think you can. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
All right, so what's intangible, Newman?
So it's like something that's not really like physically applicable. So like in the sense where you're saying that it would be like something where, say, if you're paying like an inflated value, if you're paying an inflated amount for a company, it's because they have maybe there's good showings in the market based off of that company. So it's something you can't really necessarily put a price tag on, but you're just going to give it either way.
Continue. Give me an example of what would be intangible. So we buy Under Armour. They have inventory. They have buildings. They have employees. They have technology. They have patents, which are intellectual property. They have all of that. That's tangible. So what's intangible? What are the intangible?
So like, let's say if there was like an upcoming deal that they were going to have with like a few athletes when like these specific athletes were like maybe like with Nike or Adidas, they had, there were good sales that came out. So because of that, with that anticipation, you don't really know what's going to happen, but you're still going to pay extra because maybe you anticipate that there's going to be good showings in the market after this player is officially signed.
Good start. So one of the intangibles could be partnerships or endorsements, right? You don't put really a dollar sign on that. We're not putting goodwill in your balance sheets. We are not doing that. So we're just going to discuss intangible. Intangible, though, just because, why not, right? So Apple bought Beats. Beats their assets were worth $300 million. Beats Apple paid like $2 billion for it. Tangible book value was like $300 million. $1.7 billion was all goodwill. That's intangible. What are the intangibles of Beats? That's why Apple bought it.
The new market?
Yes.
That Apple now have stake in?
Good. So the new market, and then somebody else, Vincent, Tyler, Frank, what would be another, or Aaron, Adrian, or Rafi, what would be another intangible? Thank you, Newman.
Dr. Dre.
Dr. Dre. Hell yeah, Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre is definitely an intangible. He is an employee, so he is a tangible asset. However, Dr. Dre comes with a little bit of like, at least for people my age.
Cultural.
Yes, culture. Like a little bit of a swag, a little bit of a notoriety, a little bit of a following, I guess you might say. So he's got intangible value. Okay, so the intangibles actually far outweighed the tangible assets for when Apple bought Beats. Apple, I mean, Beats was only worth like 300 million. Apple paid like 2 billion, 2.6 billion or something. So, it was mainly an intangible purchase. They literally bought them because of the aura around that device or those devices they make, and it's been a great purchase. So what I'm trying to explain is that an acquisition does have multiple moving parts. There's actually something called, and I sent it to you, it was actually listed in a bunch of these docs I was reading, M&A accounting. It's actually called M&A accounting. Well, let's be honest. If there's a whole category of accounting called mergers and acquisition accounting, that's M&A, there is no way I can teach you guys this or teach myself this in a day. So here's what I want your focus to be, okay? My focus for your assignment, and the balance sheet was last anyway for most of you. My focus for your assignment is the actual thought, data, the defense against the consumer not liking it, the defense against the Department of Justice, the defense against investors that are pushing back. This is my focus. The balance sheet is really to understand the balance sheet and to see if the company's healthy. That's my focus. I'm less worried about how does the acquisition and merger impact the balance sheet. So what I'd like you guys to do now, and I know for some of you, if you already started it, this may force you to tweak something. The reason why, when you do a merger, when you have a merger or you do an acquisition, there's an acquirer and a target to be acquired. So if you were to purchase a company, your balance sheet has to be balanced. So total assets for Amazon are 225,248. All right, 225 billion, 248 million, since it's in thousands. That means their assets also have to match liabilities and stockholders' equity. Right? So total liabilities were 163 billion, 188 million. Combined with stockholders' equity, the balance sheet is balanced. See? Total stockholders' equity and liabilities equals total assets. That's a requirement for your balance sheet to be balanced. If you just put the numbers in, your balance sheet will be balanced. Okay? So that's a focus for me, is that you guys just have to make sure you put the numbers in slowly and correctly, and your total assets will match total liabilities and stockholders' equity. However, if you're using Yahoo Finance, okay, I'm going to show you something I learned last night, which I was unaware of. I was talking to Kevin Lee last night, and he asked me a very simple question. He said, Powers, what does a dash mean versus a zero? Right? So these are the two numbers, right? So a dash and a zero. You would originally think that what would you originally think that the dash means? So if I were to come up here and I said long-term investments, dash, and operating lease is zero, what do you think those two things mean? What's the dash and the zero mean?
You think it means zero.
Hold on, Adrian, I think I had you first. Adrian, say it louder.
No, like not available.
Yeah, so let's say that you're right with the dash means not available. What's the zero mean then for operating lease?
They don't have any operating lease.
Okay, so you are both correct. So Vincent said the zero means we do not have an operating lease. The number is $0. However, the dash means we don't have the data. So watch this. So you guys want to know what pissed me off last night? I was balancing Amazon's balance sheet. Okay, I was balancing Amazon's balance sheet yesterday. You know this heifer didn't balance? It was off by $39 billion. The deferred tax assets was a dash. And I'm like, that's stupid. Why not just not have it there? Like, I know why I have it here, because I'm going to have it because I have this happening. I have this merger or acquisition happening. So I'm going to have a longer balance sheet so I don't have to mash things together. But why do they have a dash there? Well, guess what? I figured it out. So if I go to non-current liabilities, look, well, my current liabilities are 87812. Good. So current liabilities, 87812. Watch this. My total non-current liabilities is 35,585. You guys with me? Okay. If I go to non-current liabilities, their non-current liabilities are 75376. Well, how the hell is that possible when I took the info directly from the balance sheet? Here's why. When I open up non-current liabilities, I add a long-term debt and other long-term liabilities in order to get 75,376. The only problem is this math doesn't work unless your eyes are closed and you've been drinking. 23 billion plus 12 billion is 35 billion, not 75 billion. The dash does not mean zero. The dash means that they don't have that data. So I reverse engineered deferred tax liabilities. So what I did was, and this is not real life. This is Mr. Power Life. All right. I should have gone and gotten the actual Amazon quarterly report. I didn't because I already had gone through Yahoo Finance. But if you have a dash, the reason why is because there's no data. That means your balance sheet cannot balance because Yahoo Finance is missing something. So I did the math, and what Yahoo Finance was missing was 39,791,000,000. Now, my total non-current liabilities is actually what it said it should have been. And combined current and non-current, I get 163. Stockholders' equity is 62 equals 22548. Total assets 22548. Notice when you shorthand all of this, assets equals liabilities and stockholders' equity. It's got to be balanced. So number one, if you're using Yahoo Finance, that is a risk. So just be aware of that. Not all of Yahoo Finance balance sheets are wrong. But if there are missing parts, now you know why there's missing parts. The dash means there's no data. The dash does not mean it's a zero. Now, let's take it one step further. I understand that you have a cost to your acquisition, okay? We're going to shift these columns around. So your first column is going to be your breakdown. A is your breakdown, right? B is one of your businesses. Column C is the second business. Column D, I just made black, right? I highlighted it, I blacked it out, and then I kind of shrunk it to show a distinct separation. Like, here's what these companies were. Here's what this new business, new Amazon is now. All I did was merge these horizontally, all right, after getting these numbers correct. And if you notice, my total assets is 226,047,728. Total liabilities plus stockholders' equity, 226,047,728. I'm just going to request you to merge the entire balance sheet, combining. Okay? Then, how do you show that there's an acquisition happening? If you're doing a merger, you really don't need this last column. Okay? If you're doing a spin-off, this would be the opposite. A spin-off would mean you have one column here equals business 1 and 2. Right? So a spin-off means you have one balance sheet that turns into 2. A merger means you have 2 balance sheets that turn into 1. An acquisition means you have 2 balance sheets that turns into 1 plus the cost of the acquisition. So here's what I'm going to do after you have your new balance sheet. Just tell me how much the cost would be to acquire. So $1 billion in cash. So cost of acquisition plus the fund type. I would even color code the columns. Okay. $1 billion for a loan at 1%. Okay. And then $1 billion in stock. Now I did do the math here. $1 billion in stock, right? So $1 billion in shares equals for Amazon. So let's say you were going to do a $3 billion deal. $1 billion cash, done. $1 billion in a loan at 1%, long-term liabilities. So make sure it's in the correct row, done. Okay. And then finally, we're going to do additional paid capital. Well, because we're going to purchase the business for $3 billion. We already covered our first $2 billion. Our third $1 billion will be in stock. So they're getting Amazon stock, which means what's Amazon stock right now? Amazon stock today is, well, it got hit today, but yesterday it was at like 2,300. All right. So $1 billion divided by $2,300 equals 434,782 shares. So just tell me how many shares also. $1 billion in shares equals 434. Actually, this would be, if this is in billions, so these are in thousands, right? So if this is in billions, we do, best way to do this, Amazon is currently worth 2,300 shares. Sorry, Amazon's worth $2,300. So stock value, 2,300 is current Amazon stock value. And if this is in billions, I'm going to have to add. Now, again, this is where it gets fishy if you stay consistent with your in thousands. So if this is in thousands, then this actually has to be like $23. Does that make sense? Because this is supposed to be a billion, not a million.
Should be 2.3.
Right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 2.3. My apologies. All right. So I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to do it thousands. So I'm going to add a column. Thousands. And this, just because I want to be able to actually see what the real number is, 1, 2, 3, because you need to know how many shares you're really issuing, right? So $2,300, you're going to divide these. So this would be equals F50 divided by F51 stock issued to Stitch Fix shareholders. Okay? And then when you have a fraction of a stock like this, you would actually end up increasing the cash offer. That way this ended up being a whole number. You wouldn't give them a whole nother share of stock, right? You can't round your shares. They're not really doing fractional shares like this. So does this kind of make sense? So I'm not asking you to put all of this into your balance sheet, and here's why. And I was doing a whole bunch of research. I sent you guys a video yesterday, which was last night, which was cool on just the process of the acquisition, but it didn't really address the balance sheet. The balance sheet, normally what you do on the bottom of the balance sheet, under liabilities, you have to do on the top of the balance sheet for assets. That way the balance sheet remains balanced. Okay? So if your balance sheet has to remain balanced, you can't just say, oh, hey, we spent $3 billion in cash for Stitch Fix. Then all of a sudden, you have minus $3 billion here, and your balance sheet doesn't match because your assets are now $3 billion below liabilities and stockholders' equity. So you would have to edit the $3 billion under assets and then add the $3 billion somewhere else under stockholders' equity. That's how you would balance your balance sheet, right? So it would probably end up being minus $3 billion in cash, and then plus or minus $2 billion in cash, and then plus $2 billion in stockholders' equity in order for it to balance. But again, there's so many variables here. I really don't want to get into merger and acquisition accounting. I don't know it. I'm not going to pretend to know it. I can get you guys through the balance sheet. I'm not going to force you guys, especially when we're not in school together, to try to figure this out. So all I want, do both balance sheets, actually separate them like this, and then give me the new balance sheet. And then the next column, give me the cost of the acquisition and the type of funding. So this is cash in thousands. That means $1 billion. A million in thousands. That means $1 billion loan. And this is literally $1 billion stock value. And I'm actually going to put actual value right there, just so it's easy for me to see, because you would have to know how many shares are being issued. And then if you were to put this value into here, you would then convert it back to thousands. But if you want to know how many shares you would have to issue this company of Amazon in order to remove Stitch Fix altogether, like to buy out the company, you would kind of have to do this math. All right. This should be easier because now you're literally just combining two balance sheets into one for most of you. And the mass majority of you now can still address the acquisition without having to figure out, why is my balance sheet not balanced? Okay. Just type a 1 if that makes sense so far.
I have a question.
Okay, good. Adrian, go.
Okay, so can you re-explain what you were saying with adding 3 billion to the bottom, but saying negative 3 billion to the top? Because doesn't that cancel it out?
So that's the issue. So
That doesn't cancel that. If you subtract 3 billion from the top, you also have to subtract 3 billion from the bottom somewhere.
Right. So
because like you're gaining a company, you're gaining assets, so you also have to gain. Since you're using money to gain the same assets, so you have to gain the same amount of money.
Yeah. So whatever happens to the top has to happen to the bottom. So if you're increasing assets here, you would have to increase your liabilities here.
Right, because you're paying for the asset.
Right. So now you have that asset on your balance sheet. And you have the increase in stockholders' equity on your balance sheet. So what you would probably do, and I'm not going to have you do it again because I didn't get my call last night, and I was up till like 1, 2 in the morning trying to figure this out, and I was banging my head against the wall. At this point, I would probably have, don't do this, but I'm guesstimating. If I were to be buying this company, I would be adding 3 billion in assets up here somewhere. Okay? I would be adding 3 billion in assets up here. And I would be adding 3 billion in liabilities. which would be accounts payable. Whoa, wait a minute. Well, we can leave it up here for cash because we're not adding to the balance sheet. But you would probably add the $3 billion, which is the value, right? We talked about goodwill. So you would add the $3 billion here. I'm just going to put it here just to put it here, okay?
Yeah.
I'm just going to write testing. Okay, so we'd put the $3 billion here. Well, now we're also spending $3 billion, right? So we have to add $3 billion here somewhere. So we would be adding this to the debt. So we would be adding, insert above. And again, for some of you that really want to try this, I understand the question, so I'm just going to do this. And I'm just going to, this is not a label. Debt for buying Stitch Fix is again 1, right? So far we've added, right, $3 billion in assets from purchasing them, right? And it's not cash. I just put it here, so whatever. Sorry. But we've added $3 billion in assets. Now we have to add $3 billion in liabilities because it's costing us $3 billion. So under liabilities, accounts payable. All right. Operating lease. So current liabilities, I just add another row. I would add the billion. So I would say cash for Stitch Fix. Again, I don't know exactly where this would go, which is why I'm requiring it the way I'm requiring it. But so far, I've got the cash for Stitch Fix here. I've got the debt for Stitch Fix here. I've got $3 billion up here, and I'm only missing $1 more billion down here, which would be additional paid in capital because this is extra stock you're issuing. Now, this is at 229,047. This is at 227,047. So that means I have an addition issue somewhere right here, right? So I didn't do this combination, right? So I would do this, and then we need the sum. Okay. That gets me at 227 still. This is 229, but so let's see, hold on. I added the 3 billion. I got to add the 3 billion here. So there's the 1 billion for Stitch Fix right there. I got to add. All right. And then this equals a whole new number right there. That gives you 89 billion now. This information here. So this is now, oh, so these numbers changed also. So it's E45 and E53, no, still. So then I must be getting an addition wrong here, total current liabilities. So maybe this one, B45 to D, I think. Adrian, you see what I'm trying to do though? You see how?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so instead of me going through for the next 20 minutes trying to find out where my equations are wrong now, because now my equations are wrong because I'm adding rows, right? So I'd have to kind of recalculate some of this math. But I would
get the concept.
I would be adding the 3 billion in assets. And like Vincent said, what you do to the top, you got to do to the bottom. You'd be adding 3 billion in liabilities. And we should be balanced. So this equals 229. This would end up equaling 229 because we know we added 1 billion here, 1 billion here, and 1 billion in paid capital. All right, we know that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
Just my equation right now is wrong. So you don't have to do this because this would be like the difficult side of the merger and acquisition accounting. So we're not doing this. right? We are not going to do this part. If you want, you can try to mimic what I just did. It will be frustrating. You will feel super accomplished by the time you're done. I'm not going to require it. If you have the time and you want to test yourselves and see if you can build it out that way, yes, what you do to the top has to make sense to do it to the bottom, right? So if you're acquiring them for $3 billion, you're acquiring $3 billion in assets. Now, you're not really acquiring $3 billion in assets. So watch this. This is what we were just talking about. You're really acquiring like 1.7 in assets. And what is the other thing that you're acquiring that is intangible?
Goodwill.
Goodwill. This is what you're getting for acquiring Stitch Fix. This. So Stitch Fix assets. And again, it's not how this would be labeled. That's why I'm not trying to tell you to do it this way, but might as well show you how the balance sheet would balance. Okay, that's how it would balance. You'd have the value of Stitch Fix and the goodwill of Stitch Fix equals $3 billion, because that's the purchase price. Right? That's your purchase price. That means you have to put $3 billion in liabilities. A loan, yup, there's your $1 billion. Then, so there's your debt for buying Stitch Fix, that's $1 billion. Your stock you issued, that's $1 billion. And then your cash you paid for Stitch Fix, that's $1 billion. There's your $3 billion. You would therefore have a balanced balance sheet again. I'm going to delete these because we are not going to actually use them. I'll leave them there in blank. All right. Now, Chris's question, what do we do with the stockholder equity part? Chris, all I want you to do is do the same math here that you would do anywhere else. So basically, okay, if you're doing a merger, you are combining these two columns into column E, okay? If you're doing an acquisition, you're doing these two columns, merging into column E, and then you'll do column F and G if it's an acquisition. Because F and G is just going to tell me the cost of the acquisition and the fund type. Aaron, parentheses mean minus. So if you did this or this, it would mean the same thing. Actually, just transferred it for me. So notice if I do parentheses 0, 0, 0, 0, once I hit enter, these parentheses are going to make it a negative. Okay, so Vincent, good question. How do we determine the rate if we issue bonds? So loans are easy. Go online, find a lender, right? What is the best loan rate that exists that you can find? Maybe you can find the credit rating of the business and give an estimate. So Apple's still AAA rated. Netflix definitely is not. Tesla definitely is not. So if you're thinking Apple gets 1%, just give me an argument. You know, based on Citibank, you know, business loans, you know, they're giving loans at, you know, an average of 4%. Apple's at a AAA rating, Apple would get 1 to 2%. All right, make the fact-based argument, because you would not really be able to actually get this number without calling a bank. And even then, they're probably not going to be able to give you a number anyway. For bonds, same situation. You can see what they're selling for in the market. All right, you can just do a quick search, bond rating, bond rates, and then try to, your rate you're determining is not set in stone. There's not going to be, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Vincent said General Motors was taking out a 10 billion, Boeing was taking out a $25 billion. So Boeing just did this yesterday.
Yeah, they sold 7 tiers of bonds.
Yeah, how much? How much money is it?
In total, they raised $25 billion.
$25 billion of debt.
They
And
claim they're not going to rely on the government anymore.
correct. So the good thing is you're not relying on the government. What's the bad thing?
That's debt you have to take on.
Hell yeah. Not only is that debt you have to take on, but what
That
is
you have
Boeing
to pay back.
You have to pay it back plus interest. But what's Boeing facing right now? In this economy, what is happening?
Decreased travel. They have the 737 Max is grounded. They're currently in a lot of trouble.
You got a lot of black eyes. They got beat up a lot.
I mean, Airbus isn't doing any better, so.
Right. Except for the fact that Airbus is probably stealing some of what
Well, they're probably being heavily subsidized by the European Union.
well, that would be everybody. So the thing about Boeing, yes, Boeing issued $25 billion in bonds. At what percentage? It's going to depend on their credit rating. It's going to depend on what
They're selling up to 40-year bonds, which is crazy.
40 years. Well,
That's 7%.
So let's say 7%, 40, and you said it's in tiers, right? So let's see if we can find Boeing bond offering. Okay, so let's see if we can get some clarity on the type of bonds. I doubt because CNBC really, it's not for smart people. CNBC gives us like popcorn with no butter. Yeah, it's not going to give us this. It's useless. Bloomberg will probably give it to us. Either way, I'll see if I can find it. Vincent, you found it. Do you know where you found it?
I just looked at some article online and I never really remembered where I found it.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I doubt with Boeing's current situation, I doubt they'd be getting a premium rate for it. So they're probably paying a decent percentage. But yeah, so I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, Vincent said Boeing is taking out a loan, is doing bonds at 7%. Well, I think it should be 6%, Vincent. I just need Vincent to give me a fact-based argument, right? Looking at such and such, this company is selling bonds at this rate, and this company is here on the, Moody's rating scale, right? So if we go to the rating scale for these companies, for their credit rating, while Boeing is, lower medium grade, BBB plus, I'm estimating between 4 and 6%. So you can give me a range. If you're AAA, 1 to 2, 1 to 3%, depending on how many, what your debt is. Right? The more debt you're taking on, probably the higher percentage you're going to owe. So this I leave in your hands. Just make the valid argument. All right. And the same thing with the loans. With the loans, I leave in your hands. Do a little bit of data research on what current loan rates some companies are getting, and then look at the credit rating for maybe the businesses you guys are doing. And then that might help frame that discussion for you. All right. And then you don't have to tell me this is definite. Like, no, this is definitely what Amazon's loan would be for. You don't have to give me that. Right? You would give me I would say your best bet. Or best guess, I guess you might say.
Yeah, Bloomberg said the bond tiers are at 3, 5, 7, 10, 20, 30, and 40 years.
Okay, so they have expirations, they have maturity dates of 3, 5, 7, 10,
20, 30, and 40 years.
20, 30, 40 years. Jesus. That's crazy. Well, hey, God, God bless him. Good luck. Hopefully it works out for him. But yeah, so that's the best way I would say for you guys to do it. All right. Arafi, Brian Wong, you guys have any questions? I haven't heard from you today.
No, I don't have any.
No questions. Okay, so based on what I sent you guys yesterday, right? I did go through a little bit harder on what I'm expecting here, right? If you remember, we looked at some of what Tyler had done. We talked about, this is the can't block this is the Department of Justice. None of these really relate to the Department of Justice. These are all opinion, but they're all opinion based on probably the consumer. So these aren't even relevant to the Department of Justice because the Department of Justice wants to know about competition. So I would need percentages on competition. I would need percentages or charts or graphs or numbers on how many other telehealth companies are there. If you want to say Amazon should be allowed to buy Teladoc, the company, well, there's 17 other telehealth companies that are worth almost the same. There's 4 other publicly traded telehealth companies. There's, telehealth only makes up 2% of all doctors' visits. These numbers would help prove that this is not going to create a lack of competition or a monopoly or an unfair advantage for Amazon. That is the goal there. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, you've really got to make sure that your Department of Justice is about this type of information, right? The Department of Justice information is strictly about, hey, what is happening with competition? That's their job. It's not to increase competition. Their job is just to moderate and monitor and not reduce competition. Okay. I got nothing else for you guys today. I'm not going to push you guys to be here longer or force you guys to be here longer. We're a little bit ahead of time. Anybody have questions before I let you guys go? All right. So I did extend this based on what I want for a little more data. I did extend you guys again on the assignment to May 7th. So we gave you an extra 3 days. Not only did we give you 3 days, we also made your balance sheet process easier, right? So not only is your balance sheet less stressful, but we did increase the days, so hopefully that should balance out with a little bit of the extra research you're going to have to do here in order to kind of find, hey, what was happening with the percentages data that you guys are going to look for me here. All right, for parts 3, 4, and 5. All right. If you guys have any questions, I'll stay for a couple minutes. If you guys have none, I'm okay letting you guys go. You guys are really comfortable. You're really good? You're sure? All right. Then have a wonderful Friday. Have a good weekend. I'm accessible all weekend if you guys need me. Monday, since now we are actually, we've ironed out the balance sheet. We've ironed out these details that you need for parts 3, 4, and 5. Monday and Tuesday, let's just show literally what you have. So Tyler, I'm going to close this. I don't want to see this anymore. I'm going to close this part. I don't want to see this anymore. When I come in Monday, all I want you to do is share your link and we can go down through your screen for some of you that are ready for that. Okay. That's what we're going to do the whole time, Monday and Tuesday. If you have questions, don't wait till Monday. Message me as soon as you can. Just shoot me a text or throw it in a WhatsApp group or throw it in onto the Discord channel. I'd rather you guys throw it on the Discord channel so everyone can see my response. If it's about your specific business, you can still throw it in there and let people see it. Okay? Guys, as I said before, I'm still excited for this assignment. I do think this is probably one of the best assignments that we do all year. That is why I keep extending it, because I do want this to be your best work. And I do plan to have you guys, pitch and record and post these, and you never know what that might turn into, right? So please, again, do use this weekend wisely and reach out to me if you have any questions, and I will see you guys on Monday. Have a wonderful day. Give your families my best.